Alright guys, and welcome to the 45th episode of Below the Bar.
In this episode, expect to find out what global religion and people who don't take creatine have in common, why environment is important in shaping your existence,
And how TikTok has eroded the attention span of an entire generation.
Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back at the second time of asking, because we just did 5 minutes and then shock, the fucking audio wrapped again.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were a really good 5 minutes as well, so if we don't go viral now, we know why.
And just to kind of, just so I can air my frustration with the listeners,
Yeah.
right? This fucking sound interface, whatever it is, cost us, what, 400 quid?
Yeah, 400
Yeah.
quid. Yeah.
And the idea was that it was going to future-proof our podcast when we purchased it about 6 months ago. And it's been nothing but a fucking ball ache.
What's mad as well, the mic we inherited for free, which didn't need one of them, which just plugged straight into the computer,
Never had
was
any issues
absolutely sound the entire time.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you know anything about fucking this
What's it called, that?
pre-Sonos or audio interface, or you know, you're like a sound engineer, or you're a bit of a fucking tech nose, please get in contact, because I'm at the end of my tether.
Yeah, Eddie's almost thrown that out the window, so it's only got one more wrap in it.
But, and also, it's within your interest, right? Because we're now reluctant to interview people and have guests on, because we don't want the embarrassment of our technology letting us down, effectively.
Which has happened twice.
Which has happened twice, and it's very unprofessional.
Yeah,
so
we don't do unprofessional. Yeah,
we don't do unprofessional. We're not going to have kind of the best and the brightest on this podcast.
Britain has to offer.
Yeah, because they're there. The thing is, right, we have got some...
They're in our DMs.
We have got some juicy guests lined up, right? And we can't give them to you because of fucking technology.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, unless you are a sound engineer, you can't really do anything about
I've just
that.
burdened you with frustration, effectively, that you can't actually do anything about.
That's good. Anyway, we're going to go straight into the episode. As you might notice, we are a day behind. Our weekend was busy, as we're going to get into shortly. However, we're going to bring back the segments today, which we haven't done for a few weeks, because we've tried to give the topic the sort of mainstay, effectively, because the segments, if we kind of go into them, can take a bit of time, can't they? So we're going to bring those back today, starting with Helmet of the Week.
Helmet of the Week.
And this week's Helmet of the Week was born out of my Instagram comments again, which is good, because that happens more often than not now. So this week, it's people who don't believe in the supplementation of creatine monohydrate.
Yeah, which is mental. So just to provide some background context, obviously we work in the fitness industry. Creatine monohydrate is a supplement. So this is very much within our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And creatine is probably the most widely researched supplement on the market, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask anyone in the fitness space worth their sort of salt, they'll tell you that supplementing creatine pretty much has no downside and all the upside.
Yeah, it's good, that.
In basically every facet of your being.
It's good, right? So if you just replace the word creatine with anything else and you were thinking about buying it, you would?
Well, particularly if it was so averagely priced.
Yeah, exactly. If it's so cheap.
If there was a new, mattress topper that was promised to improve your cognition, improve your physical performance, and have no downsides, you'd probably get it if it's 20 quid, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah? All in agreement? Yeah. So creatine does all that sort of thing, and it is about 20 quid, and you have to replace it probably every 6 weeks. So very inexpensive way to improve pretty much everything by about 3 to 5%, basically. So it's not huge returns, but in the supplementation space, because it's a supplementation, it's fine margins anyway. If you're going to go and take like pre-workout or Tonka Ali or something else that isn't so widely researched, it's probably only going to be a few percent difference anyway, even if that's like placebo or whatever. If you take creatine, it's a genuinely marked like 5% difference.
Yeah. So
anyway, this Helmet of the Week.
Yeah, so that's the
to bring you full circle.
That's the background context of why everyone should just take creatine, basically. So
if you take nothing else from the episode, go and buy some creatine.
Now you're armed with that information, let's kind of explain how these people are stinking Shep's DMs out.
Yeah, so it's not so much just me either. So this is backed by science. Anyway, I was at the Red On Performance Centre interviewing or chatting to Dr. Ash Cox, who is basically the most qualified person I know
Well, he is, isn't he? Really, he's the most. If you met him, he would most probably be the single most qualified individual you'd ever met.
Yeah, because so he's got PhD. How many PhDs? He's got a singular PhD.
He's got a singular PhD. I think he's got multiple undergrad degrees and multiple master's degrees. Yeah. He's also got his para wings
and his green lid.
And he served in the military for how many years?
I think like over 10. He was a PTI in the military.
He's worked in professional sports.
So anyway, there's not much that this guy doesn't know or hasn't seen, especially when it comes to that side of life in terms of like fitness. So his PhD is in like musculoskeletal injuries. He's obviously a physical training instructor in the army, all that sort of stuff. So,
and he also works on one of, if not the highest board of nutrition in the country.
Yeah, and as we're talking about supplementation, obviously nutrition is a huge part of that. So, or supplementation is a huge part of nutrition, should I say?
Well, so supplementation in the context of joining the Marines as well.
Which is what we're going to go into.
This is directly in the middle of the Ash-Cox Venn diagram.
Exactly, yeah. If there was anything that Ash would know about, it's pretty much this. Okay, because he's had the experience, he can read the literature, he's done his own studies on it, right? Which is mental.
He's quite well placed to have an opinion on that.
It would seem so. Anyway, so I did a bit of content where I interviewed him basically and asked him, "Are there any supplements you should take in preparation for the military?" And he said vitamin D, which didn't get any backlash, rightly so. And he also said creatine, which can improve cognition, etc. And everyone should take 3 to 5 grams per day, depending on sort of size and goal, etc. Anyway, that's pretty cut and dry. That no one really.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to back a horse,
it's a good one to choose, really.
Yeah, good odds that.
Decent odds. Anyway, the comment section was littered with a few individuals who I won't name because, well, I don't know.
But you can go and find them.
Yeah, you can if you want.
We won't say their names. You go and find them. Call them a cunt.
Yeah, from us. And they were just they were basically saying. So one of the major arguments against this, which doesn't make any sense, is the fact that you can't take it in training. So why take it before? So specifically in the context of the military, during military training, for whatever reason, because they lag behind literature by about 20 years, you can't take supplements, including creatine, in training. So that informs a lot of people that, okay, well, there's no point taking it beforehand. However, as we've been through, there's a plethora of benefits from creatine that you can yield during the preparation, so the lead-up phase for training, where you're doing all the physical training, trying to get the best adaptations, all that sort of stuff. So that can objectively make your preparation about 5% more effective.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to opt out of it just because you can't take it when you get there. As if to say, when you stop taking it, all of the benefits you've taken just tailor off completely, which isn't the case.
Well, even if you just took it to put you in a better position for when you got there.
Well, that's it. That's what it is. Yeah.
It's almost, because obviously it's so heavily researched. If you go from a position of having never taken creatine to then taking it, you will objectively be in a better position.
Yeah, which obviously,
because the research all just points in one direction.
And the reason you're preparing, right? The reason you're doing any phys is to put yourself in a good position, no?
Yeah.
Right. So if you can make that position better by 3-5%, you would do so.
But again, all these people, all the anti-creatine people in your comments, come from the same cloth, don't they?
Cut from exactly the same.
They all come from the.
I didn't take it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's the same argument with strength training.
Exactly. I didn't do it.
I didn't do it in the 60s when I was in the Corps.
Yeah, when there were no gyms.
So yeah. Before sports science existed, I didn't do a thing that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So why is everyone doing it now?
Yeah, before creatine was packaged, I never took it. So So this a couple of guys were saying the same things basically. I got through it, so without creatine. So why should you need creatine to go and get through it? Which is, from any objective standpoint, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. And anyway, these people are generally just, I don't know who they are personally, but people who've been in the military, normally the Marines, have no background in science, first of all, no background in phys, no background in coaching, no background in whatever, so they're not really qualified to talk on the topic anyway. They've just been people who've got through training about 20 years ago and now think they have the ability to argue with a professor, genuinely.
So what you've just described there, we can describe that as coming under the umbrella of ignorance, can't we?
A little bit of ignorance there.
So let's compare the umbrella of ignorance with Dr. Ash Cox, who we've just described, who very much is in a position to have an
To
opinion
comment.
on the supplementation of creatine. So again, talking about backing your horse. You've got ignorance umbrella, Dr. Ash Cox.
You got confirmation bias.
Yeah.
It worked for me, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
Versus objective truth.
Yeah, you've got jaded ignorance. You've got evidence-based practice. Jaded ignorance, evidence-based practice. Again, not a gambling man.
Yeah.
I know who
But if I
I'm backing.
was, I'll be backing you. So, if you are out there and people are, and there's someone who's advising you, it particularly relates to kind of the military, because there seems to be that kind of population more prevalent in sort of veterans than anywhere else. But if people are telling you to not do stuff because it's not what they did, then maybe just second guess it a little bit, because there's always going to be a objective truth and just a subjective truth, which is what they think is right because that's what they did. And there's a reason, again, I've said it loads of times, there's a reason why military pass rates, certainly with things like the Marines and the Paras, are so fucking low, because people don't know how to prepare for it.
Yes.
If people did know how to prepare for it, it'd be a bit higher. And particularly back in the day, like 20, 30 years ago, when there was no sort of preparation industry, or there was no real literature on how to properly go about that, there was like a 5%, probably not even that, like a 5% chance of getting through Marines training, Paras training. And the reason for that is because everyone who got there was basically weak because there was no strength training, pretty fit, but then as you whittle them down, there's obviously a few that just by pretty much luck are there at the end.
Yeah, it's bollocks, isn't it, really? And again, it just comes down to critical thinking. If you're being told by, I don't know, a family member who was in the military or something that you don't need to do
Or careers advisor, which is always the one.
Yeah, or a career advisor that you don't need to be doing X, Y, Z. You need to be asking yourself, who's telling me this information? Are they in a position to advise me on this? What's their background? Like, what's their agenda?
And don't use the fact, what's their background? Oh, they were a Marine, because that's not good, not good enough, really.
Exactly. You have to then vault the chasm, as per our last episode of just because they did something that involves physical fitness doesn't mean they actually understand the science behind it.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a bit of a, like you say, critical thinking relating to that, because you have to step back and remove any of your relation to that person, again, be it like friends, family, whatever, or just they're a position of authority because they're your careers advisor, careers officer, and step back a little bit and try and listen to people who are genuinely qualified, like Ash. And the thing is, Ash doesn't look the part, I wouldn't say. Like, I mean, obviously
his approach is very understated.
Well, he's not like out of shape by any means, but he's not like your typical bootneck who sounds really sure of himself, all that, because he's an academic. He has to operate and convey things with nuance, and sometimes that underdoes thing with social media, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you have to be very much this or that.
Well, it's all soundbitey, isn't it? And people like definite answers. But of course, when you're operating at his level, there is, well, I mean, creatine's pretty black and white, but most things operate in a grey area and a grey zone.
It's always somewhere in the middle, somewhere straight down the middle is the answer typically with most things, isn't it? But social media rewards this or that, yes or no, black or white, right? So,
but basically, just don't be a fucking hat who ignores evidence and science and research.
And also, just fucking don't comment on things if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you gaining from just being a knobhead in the comments?
Yeah, and just kind of like confusing people who... What are you trying to find these people?
I'm just trying to find what it said.
For audio listeners, Shep's now.
No, we can continue to sort of.
But basically, if the evidence is kind of like all pointing in one direction, it's probably not a great use of your time to
argue against that. Let me have a look. So,
offender number 1.
Yeah, Danny Gray UK. I will say him. Don't take creatine. You won't have time to take it in training, so it's pointless. So that's exactly my argument from before, which I detail.
Good.
Ash then proceeds, to write basically a fucking dissertation as to why you should take creatine. So some of his points, he's explaining these points in detail.
See, he won't like that because this bloke can't read.
No.
So it's not much use to him, is it?
Not a lot of use, and you'll see from his response in a minute, he hasn't read it. So improve work capacity, increase muscle mass, enhanced recovery, cognitive benefits, etc.
All of which are true and backed by scientific evidence.
In Instagram comments, this is how good Ash is. He's actually written a conclusion, right, which is mental. And then he said, Danny Gray, who hasn't read it, has said, one slight issue though. Do you fancy taking creatine whilst on exercise?
Right, yeah.
As if to say, if you stop taking it for the 7 days you're on exercise, you're going to lose all of the past benefits.
Right, yeah. And unfortunately, what Danny Gray hasn't understood there is there are a lot of things you can't do on exercise because you're on fucking exercise.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't do them in your wider life, does it?
Exactly. So, and then the next thing he's commented without any response, Danny Gray, our mate, UK as well. Always a red flag, really.
That's always a red flag because he feels like that tells me that he feels compelled to kind of signpost he's from the UK, which I don't understand why.
I don't know what the relevance is there,
yeah.
But anyway. Furthermore, big word, it's advised not to take prior to joining as it's not required. And then he says, you can state the benefits all you want, but ultimately you can pass the course without any issues. So I was laying in bed looking at that comment, trying to figure out how to kind of rebut it, because it's mental, right? He's basically saying, because you don't need it, you shouldn't do it. Okay. I was trying to think of like a example as to like loads of other things that you don't need to do but you do anyway to make things more comfortable. The issue I was having was there's so many of them I couldn't distill it down. So I was like, right, you can sleep without pillows, you still use fucking pillows. You can walk outside without shoes, you still use shoes. Like there's so many of them that you can do. You can get through something in a suboptimal state. Doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
You can get through training without creatine, but if you have creatine you're in a better position.
It's fucking
wild,
mental.
Mate.
The exercise one really got to me because he's quite clearly kind of he's clutching at straws there, isn't he?
He just doesn't understand how it works.
Yeah,
Clearly.
You can't shit in a normal toilet on exercise. It doesn't mean that kind of all the rest of your time when you're not on exercise, you should be just shitting like in a hole in the ground to kind of acclimatise yourself for when you are
exactly.
on
And again, like we said just then, like there's so many examples. Like you eat MRE, you eat fucking ration packs in the field. You're gonna just eat ration packs for your entire time just because that's what you do with your 7 days when you exercise.
Raising your 3-year-old sprogs on ration packs.
Yeah, well, when they're in the field, this will be this will be all they can eat. So,
I only had ration packs when I was on exercise, so I don't see why my kids need normal food. Yeah. Did all right for me.
Yeah, worked for me.
Our boys did it in the war.
So
good that.
Just to give you, I just thought I'd give you a window into to kind of the sort of lunacy we were dealing with, and it's not stopped there really. But I'll leave you to read the rest of them in your own time. But
we've done 17 minutes on that.
That's good.
And I could easily do an hour.
Yeah. So this anyway, this informs the kind of blanket helmet of the week, which is actually people who don't actually believe in evidence-based practice, which is obviously creatine was like the sort of metaphor for that, but outside of that, just people who again don't believe in strength training, don't believe in whatever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in the realm of fitness, there are loads of examples in kind of in broader society. An obvious one is religion, isn't it? Because they're all just funny made up stories.
Yeah, but hold that thought. We are going to do a separate podcast on religion.
Yeah, I was just wetting the whistle there because this whole kind of idea stemmed from a discussion around what's currently going on between Iran and Israel.
Yeah, mad how we've got from Iran and Israel to creatine. This is the levels we operate on, you see.
This is the kind of leap of faith you can come to expect from the Brother Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have delivered late this week, but we are going to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do want to kind of ponder the religion episode, just think about this for a second, right? Okay, so Iran and Israel have currently got beef, right? Because basically they both believe in separate made-up stories.
Yeah.
To the extent where they now want to go to war with each other.
They don't just believe in them. They like fully...
They live by them.
Yeah. Fully like encapsulates the entire thing, their entire life.
Yeah. I believe in a made-up man. No, we believe in a different made-up man. Let's fight over it.
Yeah. You're wrong, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Ergo, let's kill each other.
Yeah.
Good, that.
That's good. So ponder that, and then we'll
circle back to that.
We'll go into detail why it's really bollocks at a later date.
Which I'm very well placed to do because the amount of comedy I've watched around religion is fucking great.
Well, there's a reason why it's fertile ground for comedy because it's bollocks.
Yeah, that should tell you enough, shouldn't it? Really. Anyway, what are we going into next?
So we're just going to do a bit of a catch up this week because we haven't, as we said, we've been busy, so I haven't actually had a chance to prepare anything.
That's good.
But the things that we have been busy doing are worthy of discussion.
Correct. Yeah. So what are we going? When's the sort of time span we're looking at here?
Well, the kind of like the past week, isn't it? So
Okay.
It's mainly this weekend, really.
So I guess the weekend is...
Because our work week consists of work, which
Yeah.
is very entertaining.
Yeah, it's pretty... Think about this, though, actually. I was thinking about it last week, and only because we booked to go to Lanzarote to change the environment we're in. But anyway, I was thinking a lot of your life is just like the same shit, innit?
Yeah.
Mad that. I was just thinking, like... I was going into a little bit of a spiral, but anyway, I was like... you work, you get up, right? You do whatever, you work. Then you drive to the gym, then you just go to the same gym. Then you drive back at the same time and watch the same show, and then you get to bed. And like 85% of your life is just that, innit?
Yeah, well, humans are creatures of habit, aren't they? Which is why your routine is so important, because the same things that you do consistently are going to have a large impact on how you turn out as an individual and the direction your life goes in.
Correct, but also whether you enjoy those individual daily pursuits is also a massive contributing factor to whether you actually enjoy life as a whole. People often think, oh well, I look forward to the one holiday a year or the 1 week a year you're in wherever you are, but actually life isn't that. It's how you experience breakfast every day. It's how you experience your commute to work every day or whatever. If your relationship with these individual things in your life, do you enjoy the gym you train in 5 days a week? If you hate it every time, then fucking hell, that's something to change. Rather than thinking I'm going to change the 1 week a year we're away, I'm going to go to Croatia this year rather than France. Like that's not the thing to look at.
Yeah, because if you look at your year as a percentage, that's such a tiny proportion.
Yeah,
of your year, isn't it?
It's a mad thing to sort of think about. And I think I was watching some of the podcasts that were saying most people who do just live one day, over and over again, you don't actually live like 10 years really. You just live you live like a couple, like 5 days.
But so then, if you do that, why are you willing to stomach a shit version of that for, like you said, the 5 days in fucking Tenerife every
this
summer?
is it, isn't it? So do you skimp out on... So the example would be maybe, do you skimp out on the coffee you could get on the way to the work that could be a little bit more filling or whatever, because you're saving to go to a slightly better hotel for that 1 week? Do you know what I mean? Or
equally, is it worth you going on the... forget the coffee. Is it worth you going to the fucking job that you hate so you can pay for the holiday in Tenerife?
Well, that's the other thing.
Is it not you better having a job that potentially pays a bit less but gives you better work-life balance and a job you actually enjoy it fundamentally?
Yeah, that you're not spending every day of that job thinking about the fucking week in Tenerife.
But it's all right because this is going to pay for my week in Tenerife.
Yeah.
If you actually enjoyed your job, you probably wouldn't feel compelled to fuck off to Tenerife.
Well, exactly that, yeah. You always need breaks and stuff, but I think it's less about the
escapism factor.
Yeah, exactly. It's less about this. It's more about just recharging a little bit, isn't it? Like recharging your batteries. That's fine. Like everyone needs that every now and then. I try and use weekends as that. I know everyone does, but I try and actively do that. I think a lot of people use weekends actually as escapism.
I was going to say this is the other example. It's you suffer for 5 days to then live for 2 days, but actually because you hate the 5 days, the 2 days at the weekend are spent escaping. Yeah. Normally through kind of like alcohol or drugs.
Typically alcohol, gaming, that kind of thing.
And it's like you'll think you're recharging, but you're not. You're actually kind of digging yourself into a hole because you're having to escape the work week that you despise.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. I did a post on activity trackers actually saying I don't like live my life staunchly by them, but this is where they can actually come in handy, because if you were to do that,
yeah, it would tell you.
You would see that actually that's not recharged me at all. And so you would obviously go through the week, and because you're training and doing whatever you're doing in the week, your recovery score, whether it's on whoop or whether it's felt, is going to be going down. But then on the weekend, you would think it's going to go up because you've spent time with family, time with friends, whatever. But actually, if you've been drinking and eating shit food, if you woke up on that Monday morning, the whoop would actually be like 1%. I think a lot of people fucking fall into that trap, and it's interesting because, like I say, I try and actively use the weekends as a opportunity to recharge. So I try and do things that serve me in some way.
But that's
in the
because
future.
that's because we enjoy our job, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we want to be in a good.
That's correct.
And we want to be in a good
It's a
place.
feedback. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a positive feedback loop because we want to be in a good place for Monday.
Yeah.
Because then we want to get better at
you
our
want to
job.
perform well on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah,
if you
you're
don't
right,
like your job,
or don't give a fuck about
or don't give a fuck about it, you're just going to do everything you can to basically avoid the issue until you actually physically have to be there.
That's very true. Yeah. So where's the actionable, tangible there?
Critical thinking again, isn't it? Really,
It all comes back. It all comes back to. Well, it's critical thinking, but I think more in depth is having the ability not to live on autopilot. I think is probably where it comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, be mindful. Be like, is this really what I enjoy?
Yeah.
Or have I just been kind of like conditioned into this existence?
Exactly that.
For whatever reason.
Well,
because has someone told you that like this is a job that you should have or enjoy? Have your friends told you that you should do this at a weekend? How much actual agency have you had over your being?
We were talking about this actually before we went on air, weren't we? About spending time a little bit on your own to figure out what it is that, because we were talking about your kind of culture and your environment, whatever, obviously informs how you think, how you feel normally, and what you do day to day. So if you just live in that environment and never take time out of it on your own to figure out actually what your kind of values are, whether what you're doing is living in service and in line with those values, or whether you just going along with, like birds who fly in formation, isn't it? Like whether you're just flying in that formation, whereas actually when you get to the fucking destination of wherever you're flying, is that going to be the place where you want to be?
This is why travel can be so useful, as opposed to kind of like just escapism holidays like we were talking about earlier.
Correct.
With Tenerife. Because travel forces you to experience new cultures, new ways of thinking, where there's different values and social conditioning at play. So it gives you an insight into someone else's existence.
It's so interesting as well.
Compare and contrast it with yours, and we're like, well, actually, I've been told this my entire life, but this X culture does this, and it seems to be working a lot better for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we often think that our way is just right, isn't it? Because it's the way we've done it. It's the way we do it is obviously the best way.
If you
why would we do it in a suboptimal way? If you, like you say, take yourself out of that environment and put yourself in a different environment where they obviously think what they're doing is right. It's weird because we're all human. We all have the base needs are all the same. Every human is exactly the same. We need a little bit of status, need a little bit of we need social, what's the word?
We need community.
Social community, that's
belonging, you should say, really.
Yeah, okay, belonging. You need physical health and whatever. So you need relationships.
And we're all basically just here to
reproduce. Yeah, exactly. Everyone needs that for stable mental health. But the interesting thing is how different cultures go about attaining all those things, isn't it? And valuing all those things. It's weird.
Yeah, and there isn't necessarily a right way to do it, but there are definitely wrong ways to do it.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. People say there's no right or wrong, but there are objective wrong ways.
But there are wrong ways.
Yeah,
and I'm not gonna. Yeah, we won't.
We shouldn't really delve into the wrong ways too much because it
becomes quite negative. We will cover that in the religion episode
as a clue.
Spoiler alert: people who are religious.
Put an awful great deal of faith in a made up man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Catholicism, actually, weirdly, because Catholicism's all about basically just living in fear, isn't it? In the hope that if you do exactly as God says, you will then, grant access to fucking a better existence when you pass from this earth.
Yeah, extremely illogical.
Well, yeah, because that just means that you live. It's the perfect exemplification of what we've just been talking about. It's like, why are you going to put up with something that you absolutely despise for incredibly short? And this time, it's not even any tangible period of time.
No,
it's just a promise.
It's
you don't even know if it exists.
Mad that though, the power of that it's mental, isn't it?
It's mad, isn't it?
Like that story, or the power of that storytelling is so fucking powerful.
It's not even like, oh yeah, if you live by this book for 5 days, you get 2 good days a week. It's like, if you live by this book for
85 years.
For 85 years, you might get something at the end of it that no one's actually proven because they're dead.
Yeah, that's so mad, Anyway, we'll cover that when we get into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of... See, if you just start to unpack religion, you fucking call it out for the bollocks that it is, isn't it? Cause
and we'll look to do that.
If you change, Christianity or, Islam or Hinduism or any of the major
major religion.
a consumer product.
Okay.
you'd think, well, that's the biggest fucking scam going.
Yeah.
It's just a Ponzi scheme.
You're going to
innit?
invest this much time, energy, whatever.
Yeah, so think of this as like a financial investment. So like,
Exactly.
think of this as like, I don't know, like a fucking, like a holiday rental or something.
Like an Airbnb. Could be, couldn't it? Like, it could be an Airbnb. Okay, so you're going to invest. I don't know how the time would come into it, but let's just do finances. You're going to invest a shitload of money, which would be in the Catholicism case 80 years, but $8,000, let's say, right, into this Airbnb, and this Airbnb has no photos because you've just heard it from basically your mom. There's a good place, but that's kind of the only analogy you can use because it is so singular that.
All right, what about like a pension ISA then or something?
Okay.
It's like you put X amount of time, energy, and finance into this kind of like ISA for your entire life, but you can only access it when you're dead. But we promise you'll be able to access it. Yeah,
but that's the same thing, innit? Or
but there's just nothing there. There's nothing tangible. That's the point. Yeah, like, it's all promised. It's all promise.
It's all story, which is so fascinating how bought into that story people are. So bought in fact, they want to just sacrifice their entire life in service of that. It's mental. Anyway, we'll cover that.
Yeah, we'll cover that
in more detail.
But yeah,
so
we got sidetracked there because we were supposed to be talking about
our week.
Supposed to be talking about the Peak District and a marathon.
Talking about our week there, and it got quite deep. Anyway, that's what it's about. Yes, so the week went by as we've just been through, and then we went to my first client event. So one of my kind of goals on the annual plan this year was to host a couple of client-only events. So last year, as you probably know, we hosted the seminars, and they were for non-clients. This is a different thing where it's clients only, and there's going to be a couple of events going on this year. But this one was a slightly different way of doing things, I think. So I got a message from a guy who's an ex-Royal Marines mountain leader. I think he's a serving mountain leader, actually, from what I've learned. And he runs these packages for like corporate events and all that sort of stuff. And basically, they take people who don't usually spend time outdoors, into the outdoors and do whatever it is you want to do. Basically, they're pretty well qualified across the board. Part of that Carter group is a guy called Carl who hosted our day on Saturday. And basically, it was like a day of climbing, abseil, and a bit of like navigation stuff. And it was sick.
Yeah, it was a good day. Yeah. Shout out to Carl because he's my new man crush. So
yeah, Eddie's really enamoured with Carl.
I'm more enamoured with his camera that he let me spend the day playing with.
Yeah,
like a child.
Yeah, and I got some fucking hoofing photos out of it. So
yeah, so the reason I was there is I was tasked with kind of being the content
womble.
The content womble. There's a womble for everything, and I was the content womble.
Yeah.
To put my fucking film studies A level to good use.
Exactly.
It's collecting dust. But the intention was I was just going to use iPhone camera because in most situations that normally just cuts the mustard, doesn't it? But then obviously Carl being this kind of like Royal Marine mountain leader,
ultra prepared,
like they're basically mountain leaders are just ultra prepared because when you work in hostile environments like they do,
you have to be swept up.
If you're not prepared, you will fucking cream in.
Yeah, you have to be swept up. Yeah.
So shock, he had some mental Gucci camera just knocking about in his van. He's like, I've got a camera you can use.
Yeah,
he pulls out this fucking
behemoth,
this fucking SAM turret, as you called it yesterday. This like surface to air, like ballistic missile.
I know, it was fucking huge, and the lens on it was some fucking mental thing.
Yeah, he had some mental lens on it. He'd fucking played around with all the settings, so they took like really kind of like. So basically, all I did was like use autofocus and press the shutter, But it worked.
Delivered some fantastic results, which was really, really good. And I think, again, fortuitous. And we've joked actually the other day that our other events, we haven't had that luxury of decent photography, videography.
We've had quite bad luck, haven't we?
With exactly
we've
that,
used certain individuals who haven't delivered on promises. Again,
who aren't great at admin.
A lot like Global Religion. But
yeah,
who aren't great at admin, unlike Carl, again, who is
all over it.
Man crush.
And so our other events have been fairly underwhelming in terms of content from it, which is annoying because when you put on these events, you want something to remember them by and to push them with and all that sort of stuff. And so this time, fucking the different story, we sort of reaped the rewards of the other two and came, and this camera was unbelievable. Anyway.
Yeah, we profed, didn't we?
Yeah.
As a friend of the podcast would say.
Exactly, a friend of the pod.
In fact, just this time we actually did prof as opposed to
a promised prof that wasn't there.
The promised prof.
That's a good religion analogy.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, exactly.
The promised prof that didn't come. Yeah. The promised land. Anyway,
yeah. Well, that's what he's kind of preaching, isn't he? and again, like global religion, it doesn't exist.
Good storyteller.
Yeah.
Anyway,
a charlatan.
So basically, the day was the kind of aim of the day. I think was take people who don't usually do that kind of thing or haven't experienced that kind of outdoorsy stuff before, and expose them to it under sort of expert instruction. And I think that's kind of what we nailed really on the day, because everyone, after speaking to them, there was 10 of my one-to-ones that went down there or up there. Everyone hadn't abseiled. No one had climbed outdoors before, and from the kind of looks of it, I don't think any of them had navved either.
No.
So from the 3 things we did,
throwing shade.
Well, they hadn't like the basic stuff we went through. They didn't really know, did they?
No.
Right. So the 3 things we did were all extremely new to these individuals, which was good, because it just shows it's a completely different day for them. I think you can have like these events we've done in the past with they're in the gym and you go through movements or whatever or mindset stuff, which is cool. But it's just completely different, I think, to take people outside, maybe out their comfort zone, challenge a little bit of their, vertigo or whatever. There was a few people who were a bit scared of heights, so I had to overcome that. So it's mega cool, and I think props to the people who volunteered, even though they knew they were scared of heights, because that's kind of cool. I thought people would be quite comfortable if they were willing to volunteer and do that.
Yeah, I also built some valuable time on feet.
yeah. So we were on our feet, obviously, for kind of 10 hours of that day,
which is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, you do need a little bit of low level conditioning, don't you, at the moment? So
yeah, I'm trying to build myself up to be a racing snake.
Yeah, there's a lot of
so it was perfect. I didn't even think about that before.
Project Kipchoge with Ed.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that before the day, but obviously transport, and then the following day,
even more
for varying reasons, I also spent another kind of 9 hours on my feet. So I basically just spent all weekend stood up, which wasn't great at the time.
But, I'm knackered now.
But coming through the other side of it, I have realised it was probably quite good.
Yeah, you probably have. Are you going to run this week?
Yeah.
So your project marathon this year. Bod said he's training for that CFT marathon, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah. Going to do it at like the end of the year, and I said I'll pace him for it. Obviously unweighted.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, there's another fizz goal that you may or may not follow through with.
Yeah, well, that's not mine.
Because we realised today that Shep is
I'm a fizz goal slut.
A fizz goal slut.
I can't just have one. Yeah,
he's got to have a lot, but then ultimately that does dilute them. So the delivery of said goals is somewhat a bit murky.
Yeah, but this snatch thing, you don't quite understand it because.
Well, I do. It's all about the fact that you can't put on weight because you don't stick to your
nutrition.
It's not that. I staged an intervention for you, and you've still ignored that.
No, it's not just that though, because there are a lot of technical factors with the Olympic.
But we had this conversation. The lowest hanging fruit for you is just putting on like building muscle, because you've done loads of technique work, and it's like compared to a lot of people, pretty good. What you don't do is consistently eat good food.
Yeah.
And enough of it.
True, yeah. This weekend it was a good example of that, I think. Because it is those things, like I get busy and then it doesn't really come good.
But because you know that you're busy and that you have a history of kind of not being squared away with it, you need to put the habits
I know that.
In place to mitigate
it's a classic thing of you give all the advice but you can't take it yourself.
I know, but you can't be that person who's like, do as I say, not as I do. You got to practice what you preach.
I know, but typically it is the people who struggle with something the most who give the best advice about it, because they've dealt with all the challenges and things around it anyway. But yeah, it's something I'm working on, trying, but I do set a lot of goals.
Yeah, you were goals.
I was thinking, when I sent you that,
we've got enough to do this year. I know. Can't set anything else.
I know when I sent you that, I actually was thinking of another thing as well, which conflicts completely.
Yeah.
And would have been at the same time.
We haven't actually,
you'd hate it,
but we haven't actually done any of our goals for this year yet.
Have we not?
And we're 4 months in, and you're still doing the goal from last year.
Well, I know this is not just last year. It's been fucking ages.
I haven't done shit because I've been injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to fucking.
Well, yeah, it's true. I keep
realise where we're actually at.
I keep flip-flopping between Thing is, I fucking hate getting shit at cardio. It really puts a bee in my bonnet.
But these are the sacrifices you have to make to reach your goals, lad.
I don't know if it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. That's the issue. Because I don't think
Well,
I don't think it's something.
It's good you realise that 5 months into the goal.
But it's because I don't think I don't think it's something I need to do. I don't need to be shit at cardio to do that thing.
But you do. This is what I mean, because your metabolism's so high. So any extra energy that you are using is just more food that you're not consuming.
I know, but
exactly.
I also know there's that you can be quote unquote hybrid, so you can be strong and fit.
This is what I mean. Though. But you can't. You won't get the 100 kilo snatch unless you put on weight.
But I will do. You can.
You won't.
You can
but
do,
you
so
haven't,
you can
though, lad, because you've been the same weight for ages. If anything, you just lose weight.
Yeah, but you can get stronger at the same weight. Is my point.
But it's going to. But this is what I mean. So if you just keep doing that, it will take you the rest of the year.
Nah, it won't. 12 weeks.
Right. As opposed, what are we on now with the?
I haven't done it for like the. I did a 6-week build on Sonny Webster's plan.
And then what happened?
And hit 95.
Yeah. So.
And then the idea was to, well, I don't know really.
Right, let's make a promise on air now. When are you going to do this by? Because we need a third party to intervene here. Because I've tried to stage an intervention, it's not worked. Tell the people.
I did say.
And we can hold you to it.
I did decide that night. It was like 2 weeks ago. It was 12 weeks, wasn't it? Start of April. So I would say. Again, it depends on what the program says, because I'm on a separate program. I don't have control over when my test weeks are. I might have to just.
See what I mean? He's like a fuck boy when he's been questioned about by his missus about who he's talking to. You can't pin him down. You know what I mean? He's
those WhatsApp messages got deleted.
Yeah, he's like, oh well, I could do it here, I could do it there, but I'm working towards another physical now.
End of June.
Right, there you go.
Be done by end of June.
So if he's still gobbing off about 100 kilo snatch at the end of June and he's not done it, lay into his DMs like the creatine bell ends.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's I don't know. It's gonna be. I think it'll be before then, to be honest, because 96 mate was there, and that was just an ad hoc build I did with Bloggs. He was there because it was just bro sesh. So that was like 2 weeks in my plan. So that's good going. That
good.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, that's a massive side note. So yeah, this weekend we've been busy, basically running events and supporting clients at marathons and stuff like that.
We went out in Manchester as well.
I
was sober.
My
first sober night out in Manchester.
How was that?
An experience. A lot of deeply traumatising things I witnessed that I have remembered because I was sober.
To be honest, I was in a middle ground between drunk and sober, right? And I was noticing some fucking mad shit as well.
Oh, it's got a flashback. Remember that bloke in Peaky Blinders bar?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Who was bankrolling that bird's
and he got traumatised.
Yeah. Because we've all been there, but I've never witnessed it
as a
fly on the wall sober. So basically, we've all seen it. We've all done it ourselves.
We've all done it.
This bloke, who was, let's face it, he was rats, wasn't he?
He wasn't a looker.
He was gopping.
But he was with
someone that was pretty attractive. She wasn't amazing.
It's fair to say she was good looking.
She was good looking. She's well out of his league. Put it that way.
Right. Well, that's why they drew attention.
Yeah, but I saw this as I was so. It took you a while to.
Well, they walked past us, and I was like, "What's going on there?"
It took you a while to catch on to because I was sober. I knew straight away what was going on. Basically, she's latched onto him for his deep pockets. He's happy to kind of bankroll her night drinks wise in exchange for a bit of lip action.
Yeah, a bit of neckage.
And that was an understatement because they were chewing each other's face off, weren't they?
They were by the end, yeah. But obviously,
and it was also the longest goodbye in history.
Well, his the sharp end of his funnel was leaving with her and obviously going back and getting it on.
That was the service that he was envisaging, wasn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, she had a different idea in mind in terms of her product.
Yeah, which was I'm going to get a shitload of shots and Jaeger bombs out of this cunt, neck him for a bit, and then go
and fuck him off,
and then go back to my boyfriend.
Yeah, which probably inevitably did happen.
Yeah. So that was painful to see. No one wants to see that. You know what I mean? Like, talk about kicking a man when he's down. Because then obviously we were still there.
Fellow soldier.
Because then when she fucked off with her mate after the 20-minute, goodbye smooch, which was absolutely fucking
horrific
to witness.
in public.
He was then just left on his own in this bar because obviously he's ditched his mates for this bird, hasn't he?
Yeah,
So they've gone,
sloss.
and now he's just on his own, and he was just like walking about like lost, like a lost
Trying to latch
puppy.
onto another bird.
Yeah,
That's what he was trying to do.
it was painful. Oh yeah, it was horrible.
It wasn't nice, and there was a lot of that sort of stuff going on.
But that's firmly etched in my mind now because I wasn't intoxicated.
I've been able to sort of relinquish that memory because I was inebriated, so that's good. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I was in a little bit middle ground, so I wasn't smashed, but I wasn't sober either. And even I noticed some pretty abhorrent behaviour.
Some serious transgression.
Yeah, it was gopping. But
Peaky Blinders by Manchester though, if you know, he's a good.
On a Saturday night,
And I thought that so because they have a live band who play good tunes.
they were really good as well. Like, I don't know what kind of music would you kind of term it. It's
Crowd
like
pleasers.
Britpop.
Yeah, just kind of like indie rock music, I'd say.
Yeah. I guess so.
It didn't really quite fit the dynamic of the bar, I thought, but it worked.
Did work really well
because they were like a bit kind of like aesthetically they looked a bit grungy, didn't they?
Yeah, but the music wasn't like that.
The music wasn't like that, but aesthetically they looked like, because all the rest of the staff in that bar, obviously, because it's the Peaky Blinders bar,
It's true. Yeah.
are dressed like the cast of the Peaky Blinders.
It's like they were like, I think but the band was a mainstay in there though, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean they're good.
Yeah.
But like, it's just I'm surprised that they haven't had a word with them about dress code. You know, because some of them did look homeless.
Well, one of them didn't have a shirt on.
Yeah, he didn't have a rig either, so he probably should have had a shirt on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Most people should have shirts on in bars. That's a separate issue. But I mean, Saturday night, Peaky Blinders bar in Manchester was good, and we were saying this as well. I always leave Manchester feeling like I should live there.
Yeah, it's my favourite city in the UK.
Ooh,
I think people knew that though.
High praise.
So I'd still probably be living there if it wasn't for a certain individual who will remain nameless.
Yeah, and has her whole episode, to be honest.
Yeah, it was her own episode. You know the one we're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether I'd live in the centre, but I would certainly. Live
Mate, in the past 10 years, so many kind of like nice apartment and flat blocks
Oh yeah,
have been
there's loads
put up in the centre. I think that strip of land going out towards Trafford. like Deansgate through to kind of like the tram link, basically.
Yeah.
All through through
shitloads
to
of them.
Salford. Like that's nice there now. They've spent a lot of money, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the second city.
It is the second city.
Shit.
In all but name, it's the second city because, as we have emphasised before, we may be called the Brummy Brothers podcast, but Birmingham, objectively, is shit, isn't it?
It's not ideal, is it? I mean, it's almost like people pass through it now to get from Manchester to London.
You don't want your city to be a glorified fucking bypass, do you?
No, it's what it is, and it's not even an enjoyable one because it creates traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you sort of realise we haven't been out in Birmingham for a long time, but when you go out in Manchester, you realise how much better it is, don't you? Which is annoying because it's not somewhere we live.
But then when you go to Manchester, you just realise how much more is going on there.
Well,
like in every kind of facet of culture, like music, like restaurant, bars, sport. You know, look at Liverpool, look another city that I love. Look at Manchester's kind of like sporting pedigree compared to Birmingham's.
I don't know what's going on with Birmingham. I know Villa are doing okay
at the minute, but you know, if you take
historically,
a projection of the past few decades,
I wonder what that is. It's a really weird thing. That
and like music,
the top two clubs nationally are pretty much in Manchester.
Yeah, well, it's the Northwest, isn't it, and London. That's where the best clubs in the country lie, not the second city.
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
It's so odd, isn't it?
Is it investment?
I just think there's something about the psyche of like the Brummie and the Midlander.
Yeah,
it's just inherently kind of like we have like a weird like insufficiency complex, don't we?
Yeah,
like we just don't back ourselves.
Yeah,
there's something about our culture that we just don't have any faith in. What we are.
I know. I don't know what it is. It's hard to put your finger on. I don't know. There's a certain thing about the Northerner though that is the opposite of that. You know, just inherently back themselves.
Yeah, but I thought that's more about Southerners. Right, this is my take on it. So Midlanders don't back themselves. Southerners back themselves but don't have anything to back it up with, and then Northerners back themselves but then back it up with something.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
That's the UK people summarised
Encapsulated
in three demographics.
Yeah, but I mean, Southerners, the reason they've got so far is because, as we know, the ability to tell stories is half the battle.
Yeah, well, in today's society, you actually just need to be able to tell a story. You don't actually need to then back it up with the story that you told people.
Well, exactly. It's almost like religion.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back. But the North, the reason it's coming good recently is because it's, like you say, confident and the ability to back it up. So, yeah.
Definitely not biased from two people with northern families.
Yeah. Who both want to live in Manchester. Anyway,
don't go to London. I guarantee you'll either be mugged or not appreciated.
Not my words.
The words of Alan Partridge.
Yeah. Anyway, what's next? I mean, I guess that was the weekend.
Well, Manchester
as
Marathon.
A whole.
We spectated the Manchester Marathon.
Yeah, which is fine. I was like,
which unfortunately I have now learnt that my experience of marathons is completely distorted.
It's ruined.
Because obviously the only experience of a marathon I've got is London Marathon, which by most people's standards is probably, in the top 3 marathons you can run globally.
Who are the other two?
Probably
New York.
Boston and New York. Because obviously
Boston in terms of what?
There's the Abbott World Series.
Yeah.
And there's 6 of them so far, but obviously they're going to add Sydney, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'd say New York is top because of the iconic landmarks.
Yeah.
I'd say Boston is second because it's the most famous marathon. And if you're kind of like a marathon runner, it's the pinnacle.
Okay, yeah.
And then London is third because it's scenic, but it's not quite New York, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would put New York, London ahead of Boston just because of... I guess Boston's different, isn't it? It's not like experientially it's the best one. It's like it's got loads of pedigree, hasn't it?
To the layman it's probably not top, but if you're in that kind of sphere, it is the pinnacle.
Yeah, it's
basically like the second or third best marathon in the world you can run.
So we ran that first, and now every other marathon we go to is shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Manchester Marathon, because if you've run a marathon, you've run a marathon. It's an achievement.
Well, it's not the participants.
Yeah, it's just the event.
The organisation.
And obviously, we love Manchester, so every part of me wanted to love the marathon.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help feel that a lot of the route would have been kind of thoroughly underwhelming.
I don't
you're
really
just running through a housing estate, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm assuming the Northerners, as they are probably putting a good spread in terms of they'll all flood the streets and support, but it's just not the same.
It's not.
London's unreal. If you can get a place in London, fuck it, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
But to be fair though, they did do a fucking shit job of organising the start and finish line.
What, in London?
Manchester.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
because they were so I think it was made worse by the fact that they were trialling kind of like a new
system,
event village system this year.
It just didn't work.
It just didn't work. It was fucking carnage. Honestly, any terrorist with any fucking, any opportunistic terrorist.
Oh, I said that. Didn't I?
In the Manchester area could have had a fucking. It was like a turkey shoot, wasn't it?
You could have had a bit of a multi-kill.
Yeah.
Well,
it was shocking because it was all based around kind of like, the Old Trafford cricket ground and football stadium. So I see what they're thinking there. It's like, well, we'll take it out of the city so it's less logistic hassle.
Yeah.
Have to close less roads. But then obviously the only easy way to get to it is by one tram.
Yeah.
Which is then trying to service like 40,000 people.
That's the issue. And the other thing is, well basically
the start and the finish line are in the same place. So it just creates a bottleneck, because instead of runners starting at one place and then people just congregating at the finish to cheer people on,
so half and half.
You've got runners and spectators just all in the same place,
because everyone obviously wants to see the finish, and so you've got all the runners finishing in one little bottleneck, and then all the spectators trying to get to the finish line to watch people finish. So it didn't really work very well. And what it culminated in basically was people finish the marathon after running 26.2 miles. First thing you want to do is just fucking sit down basically and rap. And you have to then queue to fucking get out of the place.
Well, let's do a little priority list of first things you'd want to do having run 26 miles.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Yeah.
Eat something. Hydrate. What the 3 things you couldn't do in that little holding pen once you'd finished the marathon yesterday?
Okay, and let's go for the other side in terms of what's the number one thing you wouldn't want to do just having finished a 26.2 mile race? Stand up.
Stand up in a confined space in the baking heat.
Yeah. So they didn't really nail it from that perspective, but I mean, I'm sure it was a fantastic race. And obviously, well done to all the runners.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's a fucking feat of endurance, isn't it? And it gave me a little bit of marathon fever, so I am gonna have to do one in the near future.
Well, I don't know. It didn't necessarily make me want to run a marathon. It just made me want to crack on with all the other stuff. All the other stuff that we're doing this year, because they are kind of endurance-based goals. They're not explicitly marathons.
Well, they're events, aren't they? And that's kind of similar thing.
So I've got a shitload of half marathons to run.
Yeah, being at fitness events in general on the weekend is kind of cool.
Just makes you want to do fitness events, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's just a good vibe.
It's very wholesome.
Well, it's the opposite of, like we were talking about before, it's the opposite of going out and fucking getting pissed.
Yeah, 100%. And if you want to get into like fitness events and racing and stuff, but you can't quite kind of G yourself up to sign up for one, go and spectate one, and then I guarantee you will sign up for one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is what we did when we probably covered this. But what we did when we signed up for the London Marathon was the year before watched the London Marathon just by chance, and then we're like, fucking hell, that was sick, and signed up on the way back. But yeah, so that was Manchester Marathon, which was cool. And we knew a couple of people running as well, which was kind of nice. So we saw I think all of them apart from Gaz. And yeah, so that was the weekend.
Our weekend,
and
much, isn't it?
That brings us up to date. But looking forward, we are in Lanzarote this weekend. Well, you're there this weekend. I'm there for a bit longer. So we fly Wednesday morning, and then we'll be there all weekend. So the next podcast will be filmed there.
Yeah, we haven't quite worked out the configuration of the podcast yet. I don't know whether it's going to be on this audio equipment. Probably not, given that it keeps fucking rapping.
Yeah, and it needs lugging out there as well.
And it needs lugging out there. We don't know if it's going to be on that camera because it's shit.
Yeah.
It certainly won't be with that lighting because it takes up too much room. So it could be with our
portable mics and a phone.
Yeah, our portable mics and an iPhone.
But it might be okay. It'll be fine. The audio is actually really, really good.
The audio will probably be better,
which is mad.
Just as good, if not better. And potentially, if the iPhone can last a full podcast episode,
it'll be decent enough.
The quality will probably be better if you can set up in some natural light.
But it'll be set outside in that little outside bit.
Yeah, it would be sound. Right, let's finish off with the final 2 segments. You might not have noticed the transition there, but the audio had just fucking wrapped again.
As we spoke about at the start of the episode, I warned you about that.
It died in a very convenient place just at the end of a conversation, but it ultimately did wrap, so it meant that we had to stop, reset everything, and go again.
Start again. And it is late now.
Yeah, so if you think we are at the end of our tether in the following few segments, it's because we are.
Yeah, things might get a bit rough.
Which is good, because we've got to do reasons to be cheerful. So.
Yeah, true. Okay, so underrated, overrated. We're going to do mine today.
Because I haven't got one.
Eddie hasn't got one, so be completely candid.
It's either underrated,
you've charmed me,
or it's overrated.
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
So, I thought of this a few weeks ago, and we spoke about it briefly, but we'll go into depth a little bit. Underrated, overrated. Listening/reading books, rereading books at different phases in your life. So a lot of people would say don't reread stuff or don't re-listen to stuff because there's fucking no point. You're just basically wasting your time. If you've already listened to it, listen to something else. I think there's tremendous value in re-listening to something in a different stage of your existence. So obviously you'll change, and your priorities and your values and you'll change when you go through certain challenges and stuff like that. So therefore, like 2 years down the line, you might value different things. You might kind of different things might be important to you. So when you re-listen to something or reread something else might stick out, and something else might resonate to you, different to what it did a couple of years ago.
Firstly, it's very Radio 4 Alan Partridge, this one. It's kind of scintillating conversation that's going to keep people awake in the gym and at work, isn't it? Secondly, what you've done there is you've massively overestimated people's ability to read in 2024.
Right, yeah, fair. Well, I said listen. So audiobook.
All this, I don't think people even have the attention span for audiobooks anymore.
Really?
We should have done overrated, underrated
Books.
long form content.
Books because podcasts are super popular.
They are, but do people actually listen to it? So if I start a podcast, I'll finish it. But based on our average watch time and listen time on Spotify, it would appear people kind of watch for the duration of a normal YouTube video and then chin it off after about 10, 15 minutes.
Well, the popularity of big podcasts would argue with that.
Would you? But you don't know their analytics, do you?
But they wouldn't have got popular if people didn't listen to the whole thing. That's what I'm saying.
We could do, because if like millions of people still just listen to the first 15
but it
minutes.
doesn't get pushed out to millions of people. That's how algorithms work.
On YouTube, but I mean, like, because Chris Williamson's at a point now where, like, if
now,
you just
but
put
back in the
anything
day, he wasn't, was he? He only got to where he is because his conversations were interesting enough for people to listen to 80% of them.
I guess, but then also you could just get to that point through good clips, going out on the same channels.
I don't know.
Could.
You could get to the point of having a decent amount of subscribers.
Diary of a CEO has definitely done that, because no one listens to that shit anymore. They just engage with the controversial clips that they upload.
Yeah, now they do. That's gone like reverse. That's like inverted. That started quite good, and now it's shit. It's just sold its soul almost, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's bollocks.
Okay, well, long form. Well, let's just go books, because I think books are something that we can definitely agree people don't engage with as much anymore.
Yeah, I've fallen guilty of this as well. Actually, my attention span has eroded massively since I left higher education. Like, I struggle to even watch a film now.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, obviously, if I went to the cinema, I wouldn't have an issue because there's no distractions. But like, I can't now justify in my head putting a film on in an evening. Because it just seems like too taxing mentally to have to concentrate on it, which is kind of like not a great state to be in.
No, too taxing mentally. Yeah, I don't know.
Because it involves concentration as opposed to concentrating on a fucking 15-second TikTok.
But aren't there different styles of concentration? As in, like, concentrating on a film, depending on what the film is about, is different to concentrating on work. So just because you're concentrating on something doesn't mean it's not, like, recharging you still. Do you know what I mean?
But it just feels like effort to
me. I guess so.
It does require effort to concentrate on things.
Yeah, it does. But what I'm saying is not all effort's created equal. Like, some effort is, like, feels like work, as in, you know, fucking, for us, like, programming or conversations or whatever. Whereas a film is incredibly, like, passive effort, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, but we consume visual stuff very differently, because most people's standards now is when they say they watch something, they have it on in the background while they're on their phone. Like, when I watch something, it means my phone is down, I don't go on it, and I'm, like, fully engrossed in it.
Yeah, that's fine. But
that takes concentration. Like, just putting on a series you've seen before or something and scrolling.
No, that's not what I'm talking about what you're talking about. I'm talking about the same thing, as in actually watching a film. Like, I went to watch that Bob Marley film in the cinema.
I said that about the cinema, though. Cinema's different because
it still takes concentration.
But it's an environment that facilitates it. Because it's dark, you're not allowed on your phone. It's on a massive screen. You've got surround sound. It's deliberately the entire environment is designed to be engaging.
It's engaging, but it still needs concentration. You still have to put effort into to watch it.
I mean, like, you can't actually look at anything else because everything else is in darkness. The only thing that's lit up is the screen.
I guess so, but you still have to put effort into, like, following the storyline and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, we're not short of falling asleep. It's hard not to. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise, you would just be staring at, like, the black wall. Yeah,
I know. But you can.
It's very different to putting on a film.
You can hear something, can't you, and not, like, fully listen to it or fully get it. You still have to figure out, okay, what's that about? Who's been there? Like, you still have to engage in the storyline.
I think it's hard not to at the cinema.
I just don't know what the difference is between that and the, like, from a concentration perspective, or from an attention, whatever.
Well, because if you're at home, you immediately got more distractions. There's more going on.
But you can create an environment that is similar-ish. You know?
I mean, you can do, but even if you put your phone in another room, like you're the only person policing that. Like but in the cinema, you're in an environment where like the rule is you aren't allowed on your phone. So you've got the social pressure of not going on your phone.
Yeah, of course, it's easier at the cinema. But I'm saying it's still possible at home. Like you could still put all the lights off and.
But you don't know, do you? Because again, like that's just stupid. You might as well go to the cinema.
Yeah, you got to pay then every time. Every time you watch your film, you got to pay.
Well, that's the other reason why you concentrate at the cinema, because you've invested
some
in
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. I mean, I just think there is a different style of concentration between working and watching a film, for example.
But you're terrible at watching films as well.
Right.
Everyone's terrible at watching. This is my point. Like, I think we've got to a stage now where we can't even commit to watching like a 90-minute film because it's seen as like too much of an attention burden, effectively.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's an attention burden or if it's like a, I don't know. I don't know if it's like the fact that I just it would tire me out too much to watch it. That's not what stops me watching it. What stops me watching it is just the fact that I don't get anything from it because I'm not concentrating.
I don't follow.
So you're saying you don't watch it because it tires you out more, as in it's tiresome.
Well, no, it's more
to
effort
film.
than just mindlessly scrolling because you're constantly given dopamine when you scroll, aren't you?
Yeah.
But like, it's tiring to watch a film to then get, you know, the satisfaction of the resolution
Yeah, of course.
of the film.
It's like delayed gratification a little bit, isn't it?
That's what I mean. So like, we're hardwired to just want kind of like constant hits of dopamine. So when there's the low-hanging fruit of just mindlessly scrolling, and when you've kind of conditioned yourself to just having that access to it, you actually then reach a point after a certain time where you can't really kind of justify with yourself watching a film unless you're in an environment that basically facilitates it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I took myself to the cinema last week, to try and force myself to do it, because I find it hard to put... I don't know,
but
just
because you actually do get agitated, like when you're watching a film and something's not happened for a couple of minutes, or there's like a bit dialogue heavy scene.
Yeah.
Like because we're so used to getting kind of instant little hits of dopamine now, you do start thinking, like your mind does start wandering.
Well, you figure it when you see, when you see like a 90-second TikTok or something, you're like, oh,
exactly. That's the point we've reached.
I know, it's mad. It's even more pronounced with like a paper book though. Because, like, imagine, like, obviously a film is still, the shitloads happening. It's obviously it's curated so that it does keep your attention. Like, that's the idea, isn't it? There's fucking explosions, whatever. Depends what you're watching, doesn't it? But there's shit going on all the time. It's sensory. Sensory is quite overloading.
It's visceral.
Well, it's loud. Like, you've got all the senses going. With a book, there's no like banners popping down or, you know what I mean. There's nothing really happening. You've got to keep yourself staring at that thing and obviously following what's going on.
No, and even proficient readers will still take a day to read a book, as opposed to kind of like 90 minutes or 2 hours to watch a film,
or 10 seconds to watch a fucking reel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so and that's quick to read a fucking book. So it's massively delayed, especially for me. It takes me fucking 3 weeks because I don't read that much in individual sittings.
I think I might delete TikTok.
Is that an action step?
Yeah. And just fuck it off. Because it's shit.
It is shit, yeah.
I mean, I've got like fucking, I don't know, 11k followers or whatever, but like, because I don't make the kind of content that TikTok wants.
Do you still post on there now?
Only the stuff that I upload, only the reels that I put on
Insta,
I just repurpose them on TikTok.
Yeah.
But like, because it's not the kind of content that TikTok wants me to make, as in like I don't make it in their app, and it's not kind of like me just going off at the camera. No one sees it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just a drain on my attention span.
Yeah.
And time, and it's not like the only reason I had it in the first place was for business reasons. Yeah. So that's not actually any benefit to my business.
I just don't really think it's the right place to have like qualified leads or good people.
Well, no, because even if you went viral, like all of those people are just basically passively viewing the content.
Well, exactly.
Like, they're not buying into a narrative or the brand, are they?
No, exactly. And like your followers on TikTok mean fuck all.
Yeah.
Like they really don't.
Just mine, for example.
Well, not even like people have millions of followers from like one video.
Yeah.
Which is just mental. Whereas Instagram's a little bit more engaged. Like people have to kind of like you a little bit more to hit the follow button. YouTube's probably the best example where subscriber is like properly brought in.
Probably bought. There's more of a community. There's kind of better engagement, I think.
What do you mean by better engagement?
As in, like, between kind of, as in creator and
yeah, true. I think the Instagram story has done a lot for
heavy
Instagram. Like, if Instagram didn't have the story, it'd be fucking it'd be dead in the water.
It would be obsolete.
It'd be completely dead. Yeah, because there's nothing really like that does it as well. Because obviously Snapchat has it, but it's not really ideal.
No, it's just nonce if you still use Snapchat.
Yeah, it's bollocks, isn't it? So no, it's what are we on about here?
What about books?
Right.
Are books underrated or overrated?
Right, okay. I think I've spoke to you about this before. It's not that I don't have time. I could make time. I don't make time for reading paper books. But I do consume a fair amount of audio books. So I think if you do one or the other, then it's okay. I think if you do neither, then you're at a disadvantage, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. If you do neither, you're at a disadvantage. And I think whether you consume audiobooks or read physical paper books depends on what you want to get out of the book. If you just want the information and knowledge of the book, it's far more time efficient
to
audiobook. If you want the kind of meditative experience of reading a book and being able to escape into something, then read a physical book, because you don't get that by just listening to it, because then your eyes aren't occupied.
No, exactly that, yeah. You can fully delve in, can't you? But I think it's better for fiction though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're reading a fiction book, because you can fully get into the story then. Whereas if you're listening to a fiction book, it's a bit, I don't know why you'd do that, to be honest.
No, I think it's
you just watch the film. That's just a shit middle ground, that.
If you're reading quite a dense, like, non-fiction book as well with a lot of stats in it, I think it's easier to listen to that and then kind of re-listen to it, as opposed to just reading it once, because the chance of you taking that in are so slim. Yeah,
well, you can read it and then listen to it, and then you could listen to it on like 1.5 times speed the second time, because then you still get it and you'd be like, okay, well, I know most of it.
Just to condense your learning a bit.
Yeah, so I'm listening to The Status Game, which just started that, so I'll let you know how it goes. That's something I've been...
happened to you? Fucking what's the
Psychology Money? I finished it. Yeah,
doing it.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. It's just it's probably one of them you would probably need to read twice or listen to twice, because it's quite heavy, as you can imagine, because it's finances. But
yeah, my attention span's fucked, and I blame TikTok, so I am going to delete it.
What's the difference between that and Reels though? Because
I don't really like Instagram either, but it is beneficial for business.
Yeah. But I mean, like, the Reel function on Instagram, my worry would be if I just deleted TikTok, I would just spend the equivalent time on Reels.
I've never really used Instagram Reels.
That's good, that, yeah.
So it's just like...
Yeah. I'm pretty bad. I mean, I find, I was saying to you again, this in the mornings, I'm pretty... I can be pretty bad for it when I'm like... I just get up, but that's just a function of not being disciplined enough to put my phone outside the room, because that would solve the issue completely.
But yeah, I mean, books underrated in 2024. Sadly, they're a bit of a dying format, aren't they?
Yeah, it's polarized like everything else. I think some people fucking love them, and some people just never pick one up in their life. I just think, and James Smith says it rightly so, that like if you don't read, you have no advantage over the people who can't read. So
yeah, and no one, and and like seen as a derogatory term, isn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah. Well, it's true though, isn't it? Like, if you don't read a book or consume books, then
you're basically at the same level as an infant.
Well, exactly,
and they know fuck all.
And you put in so much fucking, like, especially if you don't consume like non-fiction stuff. There's so much knowledge out there. You're just not fucking not there, not having. Like, what's the point? It's so cheap, really. Audible's like $8.99 a fucking month. You get one book a month. It's cheap as fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, read, kids.
Reasons to be cheerful.
Yeah. Well, it's Russ Cook, innit?
Hardest
geezer.
Yes.
And I mean, everyone knows this. It doesn't take much explaining, obviously, because we've gobbed off about it enough.
Yeah, it's true. Well, if you haven't seen it, which You surely have. Russ Cook, or the hardest geezer on Instagram, has just completed Project Africa, which was the challenge of running from one end of Africa to the other end of Africa, which is fucking mental. Which was what, 385 marathons or something? 300 something?
Yeah, so it's over 10,000 miles, like the equivalent of 385 marathons in 352 days.
Yeah.
I think he went through like 30 pairs of trainers.
Yeah.
He got robbed at gunpoint.
Denied access to Algeria.
Visa issues. He had really serious food poisoning. He's got like long-term like back damage. Mental. But he did it.
And you know what's the maddest thing about this?
Go on.
He's still been getting hate by people, right? Because he originally said he was going to do it in 240 days. And people are like, well, come on.
It's mental, right?
Just shows you, don't it? You can do anything. And people are still going to fucking have a word.
But this just shows kind of how distorted our attention span as a species is now. Because a bloke has, for the first time ever, run the entire length of Africa north to south over the course of a year, raising like £1 million for charity. And for a lot of people, it's still only worth about 5 seconds of their attention.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's mad. Because he's the first person to ever do it, and he's fucking dug out and potentially done himself like lifetimes worth of damage.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's still just oh yeah, that's nice.
There's two dudes running across Australia at the moment as well.
Ned Brockman's already done that though, hasn't he?
I think they're doing it in some other way. I'm not sure what. There's a nuance there for sure.
Moonwalking.
No, in like a different fucking way
right,
around.
okay.
Do you know what I mean? Geographically a different way.
Right.
But one of them tore their ACL or something, or MCL, and he's still running. So.
Well, he's not running, is he?
He's
doing some kind of weird fucking hobble.
Yeah, he's got forward motion.
Somehow, fuck me.
So it's fucking mad. But so go and have a look at that if you haven't already. And does that bring us to the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So, I mean, if you don't know who Rush Cook is at this point, then
well, exactly.
you
There's
just
no
live
point
under a
really.
fucking rock, don't you?
There's no point really going too much into detail because it is just fucking mental. And short of saying he ran from one end of Africa to the other end of Africa, what more can you say? That's all you need to say.
You can use
isn't it?
hyperbole all you want, but like to put it bluntly, he ran the entire length of Africa. Like that is.
Well, it's good because it does what it says on the tin, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
As we know, people can get behind
But you
that.
need to post things that people can relate to.
Yeah.
They know Africa.
They know running.
They know running. They know Africa, and they know how big Africa is.
They know how hot it is, and they know he's ginger. That's
Yeah.
another two in there.
So all of that is easily fucking articulated and then understood at the other end, isn't it?
Exactly. So no, well done, Russ. You have our support.
Fucking the end of our tether now. I've lost my head because it's 9:30 and the podcast equipment we spent hundreds of pounds on is shit.
See you next week.